With all of the news out there with the Lakers making a trade to move off of Westbrook, there's a new one that has surfaced that I read about that does not include the Utah Jazz. Now, we've seen it lately that LeBron James is going to host his minicamp. Now, whether he holds it in Vegas, San Diego, wherever, they haven't excluded old Mr. Westbrook yet. But you're not going to do that when you want to not diminish his value. So there is still so much talk about moving Westbrook, and I 100% believe that locker room right now and the chemistry is basically tarnished. And this is a trade that, if they can pull it off, would only take one pick. It would increase defense, it would completely change the shooting, and it would make the Lakers younger, and we're going to be talking about it. I am your NBA white guy. I talk all things NBA hoops from a hooper's perspective. And if you like that type of content, then make sure you're tapping that subscribe button and you click the bell so you're notified every time I do a new video. Now, before we break into this trade, we got to discuss the biggest weaknesses that we're seeing with the Lakers, and one of them being the chemistry. Now, you can talk about shooting, you can talk about floor spacing, you can talk about defense, but I don't care about any of that. Coming from a hooper's perspective, if there's no chemistry and the guys ain't getting along, the team's going to fail. That's it, plain and simple. You can bring in some of the most talented players of all time, but if they don't get along, it's not going to work. I've been in locker rooms like this where there's not enough basketballs to go around, and as soon as one guy ain't getting his shots or being able to do his style of game, his head's out of it, he thinks he deserves more, and he turns into a terrible player. That's exactly what we saw with the Westbrook to the Lakers thing. I think if he actually buckled down and just became an incredible role player, didn't try to always force every situation, throw basketballs halfway up into the crowd, and just played tough defense, played with that tough mentality, led the break, or hey, even come off the bench. Yeah, you're a $47 million dude, but do you want to continue playing for 5 more years? Because the trajectory you're going right now, ain't nobody wanting you anymore. So this is what the Lakers have to do. They got to get younger, they got to get better chemistry, and they got to get role players. This is a trade that we're going to be discussing that does that. And so what we need to do first and foremost is break down who the team is, what the Lakers have to give up, and what does it do in return for the Lakers being title contenders. Now, before I get into that, you guys, if you're enjoying these videos, you got to help me out. You got to hit that like button, and you need to comment down below what would be the #1 trade that you would love to see the Lakers do right now. Is it the Jazz? Is it the Spurs? Is it the Knicks? Or is there something else out there that you've heard? Now, looking on Instagram this weekend, there was a video that surfaced on Mr. Russell Westbrook's Instagram page of him being pumped, saying, I don't care about the haters. He was in the boat. He was dancing. He's happy. He's got to do that, and I'm glad he's having that psyche. I couldn't imagine what it feels like to be in your hometown playing, wearing the purple and gold, and everybody hates you. So go Westbrook. I'm not for tearing these players down. I'm all about them having their mental and having good long careers, making as much money as possible. But he's in a mindset that maybe tells you a few different things, like, I don't care if I get traded or not, or maybe, hey, there is a trade coming up here soon where I'm going to be able to go play somewhere else and get out here. Or it also means that Patrick Beverley and him have made amends and they're going to be rock stars this year and that he's staying a Laker. You can't really read these things and you can't make, news headlines off of that stuff. But here is a trade that is available, and it's not with the Utah Jazz. This trade would include going to the New York Knicks, giving them one of those first-round picks unprotected and the Westbrook contract. In return, they would get Cam Reddish, they would get Evan Fournier, and Derrick Rose. And you might be asking yourself right now, why would the Knicks even want to do this trade? Because they lost out on Donovan Mitchell. They didn't get him. The Knicks are an absolute terrible organization. They haven't even been relevant since Starks was the point guard, and they were terrible then. This is the truth about the Knicks. They aren't getting any better, and they are not going to win any games this year with the current roster. They're not going to get into the playoffs. They're not title contenders. But you know what they do have more than any team in the entire NBA? Except for OKC, they have the most draft picks. And if they don't have Donovan Mitchell, that means they're not going to be as good. You get rid of some of these key role players who help you win games, which will help the Lakers. That means they're going to lose more games and have a better draft spot. So getting one of these unprotected picks that are very coveted from the Lakers only adds to that, so that maybe possibly they could actually trade when the time comes for somebody good, but most likely they'll just sit there and be too cheap and not do anything. Let's talk about this for a second, homies, because we're going to be getting Derrick Rose. He's a player who obviously, gets hurt, but if we actually filter into, what he's done the past few years, this may actually be viable. Now, the important part was we talked about one pick. I would never want to see the Lakers give up those 2 first-round picks for this trade, but one of the picks, it still leaves them available to trade this offseason. But again, it's not always about the talent. It's about making the locker room work. We saw it 2 years ago when Anthony Davis and LeBron James were healthy in the playoffs against the Phoenix Suns. They were whooping that booty. They were toying with them. They were dancing. It was easy. They were going to sweep the Suns. AD goes down, no more playoff contention. They end up losing, and the Phoenix Suns go to the finals. So when you watch this from a Hooper's perspective, you're like, dude, LeBron and AD can make this thing happen. And if AD comes back in shape like he's showing, this is going to be a scary team. But if the locker room sucks and the chemistry ain't there, they're going to be terrible again. It's just awkward. And do I pass the guy the ball? Whatever. So here's the thing. If we bring in these 3 players to the Lakers, I think right now you've already got good enough core 4 or 5 guys in the locker room, minus Russell Westbrook, that can make this team really good. That means you need 2, maybe 3 more men to make a rotation. This does it. And it's your job right now to comment down below. Besides Patrick Beverley, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and my guy Kendrick Nunn, what are the other top role players you see having the most minutes for the Lakers this year? I think personally it's going to be Austin Reeves. I think he should basically be a starter. And you've also got, Juan Toscano-Anderson, and one of those centers is going to have to get big minutes this year to bang down low in a 4-in, 1-out, whatever it is, situation that Darvin Ham's going to run, and to save Anthony Davis's body. But who else you think is a sleeper on this team? Now, looking at this trade, look, Derrick Rose is not going to be one of these guys who gives you 80 games. It's just not going to happen. I mean, maybe 30, 40, 50, but he is a vet, and I still believe there's guys out there in this league, especially on the Lakers, who would look into him as a leader, right? He's not trying to come in and be the Russell Westbrook and be the leader. He is a guy who can go out and get you 14, 18, 20 points. But the thing that he's done that Russell Westbrook has not, you got to think, besides Westbrook, I think Derrick Rose is arguably the most explosive point guard we've ever seen when he came out and when he was in those early Chicago years, and he was playing 79 to 82 games a year. That dude was crazy bounce. But he, unlike Westbrook, changed his game. He started spreading the floor and shooting. He's been shooting over 40% from the 3-point line the last 2 seasons combined. Guess what he was shooting in those Chicago Bulls days? 20% behind the line. So the dude took the challenge, said, hey, if I want to continue playing this sport that I love, I need to be a role player. And that means coming in, giving minutes when I can, being a vet, and shooting the ball good. That's the exact opposite of what Westbrook does. So he's a dude who's going to go into the locker room immediately and earn the respect of these dudes, and he's going to go out there and push these guys to win. The next biggest trade and the biggest thing that the Lakers are going to get is a 3-and-D wing times 2. Evan Fournier is a French player. The dude plays overseas. They are just tougher. They get it. They start playing grown men at the age of 13, 14. This is the guy who can come in, bring a mental toughness. And if you look over just the past 4 or 5 seasons alone, he's playing a lot of games. Last season, he played 80. He's averaging anywhere from about 15 to 19.5 points a game, and he's shooting 40+% from 3. This is a difference maker right here. You got to think, when you spread the floor in a LeBron James offense, you have to have somebody who can shoot. Whether they're off or not, look at Danny Green per se. When Danny Green played with the Lakers, he wasn't having his best year, but everybody knew that dude could shoot. He was earning a starting role for that purpose alone because he was spreading the floor so long. He could hit in the corner. Now, he had a couple games where he would just shoot the lights out, but there were games, remember when he was a Laker, that everybody was saying trade him, get rid of him. He was getting beat up because he could not hit anything. But that's what you think and not what the NBA players think. The NBA players respect shooters. Evan Fournier averaging 15 to 20 points a game means he's going to have some 30-point nights. That's going to win some games, but it's also going to pull the defense out. They're going to have to respect him. He's 6'7". He averages over 1 steal a game, but again, I don't care about a statistic. The guy can get his hand on the ball. He can guard bigger players. This is a wings lead, and he can create shots. And guess what? He stays healthy. Well, at least for the most part, and for the last few years, he's played a ton of games. The next guy is Cam Reddish. I'm the most shaky on this one, but he hasn't really made his limelight in the NBA or even college really. He came out highly touted. He's a 6'8", super long dude who can really, get into people and play defense, but he can shoot really well too. The guy just hasn't had his opportunity, and he's also been, on some teams where he hasn't been able to define that role per se. But again, that's what a LeBron James team does, and Cam Reddish going into, his third, fourth season, he's got to make a name for himself to continue to get contracts, right? So he needs to go in there, play with these vets, accept a role, which could be shooting and tough defense, and really revitalize his career. He's young, he's healthy, he's going to play a ton of games. This is a great rotation off the bench, you know, maybe 7th, 8th player. And the other aspect of this is everybody on that team, and every team, they're dying for minutes. I remember, you know, playing college, and all you want is minutes. You hate sitting on the bench. So these guys are basketball players at the end of the day. They're going to do whatever they can to get minutes. And obviously, Westbrook's trying to get too many minutes, and he had too many minutes. But a guy like Reddish, he's going to go in there and battle with dudes like Austin Reeves. And I don't think Reeves is going to get up his position easily. So now it's going to build this toughness. Practices are going to be a lot tougher. They're all going to be gelling and meshing because you've got LeBron James. You've got Pat Bev. This could increase the level, but they just got to get the toxic out of the locker room. The last thing, period, that you absolutely need to know is if they're going to run it with the way that they got it right now with Westbrook, with Pat Bev, I personally feel like it could work if Westbrook changes his mentality. Again, I want to know your thoughts, but if Pat Bev can get Westbrook to go all in and they just become this fearsome backcourt duo, just dogs out there getting into all the star players, it will earn the respect of LeBron. It's going to earn the respect of AD. These dudes are going to go ball out. They can, you know, put some other shooters out there, and it could work. I don't like it. If you look at the Vegas odds right now, the Lakers are still anywhere from 7th to 9th of winning a title. So no matter how bad we think it, no matter how bad they didn't make the playoffs last year, Vegas still thinks they're one of the top 9 teams in the entire league to win a chip. So we just got to get them to the playoffs. I think some kind of trade would help that. You comment down below what trade, what players, what do the Lakers personally need? I know it's chemistry in the locker room. I am your NBA white guy. I talk all things NBA hoops from a hooper's perspective. If you've been watching me this long, just go ahead and hit the like button and comment down below. It helps my videos out. And as you know, I always bring everybody else's comments up to be seen too. So until the next video, my homies, we'll catch you later.